Welcome to World of Marketing Podcast, a Foster Web Marketing production. Here's your host, Tom Foster.
Hey everybody, it's Tom Foster here at the Foster Web Marketing World of Marketing Podcast, episode 25, and I am thrilled to have my good buddy Mischelle Davis here, all the way from Seattle, Washington. And those of you that don't know, those few people that don't know who Mischelle Davis is in Foster Web Marketing land, Mischelle Davis is the business partner and wife of Chris Davis, who is probably one of the very best plaintiff attorneys in all the land.
I think so.
Yeah, well, I think we all think so. Great guy, very successful plaintiff attorney. Check out the website. Injurytriallawyer.com. Certainly one of the most handsomest men, right?
He's good looking.
Yeah, he is a good looking guy. But thanks, Mischelle, for coming you flew all the way across country, brought Ian. We're going to get Ian on the podcast later on too, to come visit with us for a couple of days and join us in the podcast. So thank you very much for being a guest.
Very glad to be here. It's important to maintain these relationships. Our website is the most important component of our marketing mix. And so it's really important that we meet with you guys regularly and maintain the relationship and make sure everybody's on the same page. So I'm thrilled that you would, roll out the red carpet for us. And I mean, you guys have been so accommodating and open. I'm just thrilled. So glad to be here.
You're more than a client, you're kind of a secret weapon. You're very helpful. We're going to get into it a little bit more later on in the podcast about how helpful you've been in DSS and all the contributions that you've made. You just spent an hour with my development team talking about, we went over the enhancement list and things that we're working on, and I know that you enjoyed doing that.
I loved doing that, and I loved that I probably gave them 10 feature ideas that I wanted, and I tried to be as nice as I could. It's good. But it's a little hard, yeah. But Gretchen knows if I start a sentence with "Wouldn't it be cool if," right, like her whole body seizes up.
Oh, she loves it. She loves it. We love to hear from that. But I mean, that's what makes us better. But let's go back. I mean, you've been with us, you and Chris, 13 years now, and we met back in 2007. At the very first Great Legal Marketing, when Ben Glass and Ren Jackson and myself put on the very first one right down the street at the Marriott Courtyard in Fairfax, Virginia, and you and Chris came cross country back then with Jackson, your son.
He was just
a teenager.
Yeah, it was crazy. Crazy. He was still wearing diapers, I think.
But you weren't working for Chris then, right?
No.
You weren't, okay, I don't want to spoil it, but you come from a tech background. So tell us a little bit about what you were doing before you decided to partner up with Chris.
Sure. Yeah. So I spent 15 years working in high tech in Seattle for companies like Microsoft, Vulcan, which is run by the late Paul Allen, who owned the Seahawks. But, so he was the co-founder of Microsoft, had his own software company. I worked for a bunch of software companies you've never heard of because, they were acquired or went public and got acquired or, just that whole thing. So I spent 15 years doing that as a product marketing manager, which means I was the go-between between sales and the dev team. So I'm interfacing with customers to figure out what their requirements are, what they need to meet their business goals, what their problems are, and then work with the dev team to prioritize the solutions that are going to solve that problem. So I had a foot in each of those. So and I loved it. In the 90s. That's why
it's so great for you to help us.
That's why I can't help myself.
I know, but it's so wonderful. Yeah.
So I know sometimes it's annoying, though, to have a client like that. But so I spent
not at all.
Never. So I spent 15 years with my own geeks, right, to write code for me. And so And then, so I met Chris in 2000, and we were married in 2001. And I kept on working in high tech. I had no intention of ever helping him out. He was a lawyer. Lawyers are boring. I'm doing high tech. I was on the adrenaline train. You know, it was just super fun. And then I had a baby. So I struggled for a couple of years to figure out exactly what I could do where I could have the level of enjoyment that I had in high tech, but without the giving 2 pints of blood a day, so that I could still be the wife and mother that I wanted to be. And so in the interim, before I worked for Chris, I started my own baby food company with a friend of mine. Called Sprouts, and that was awesome. And
that was
did
like
that
organic baby food, right? Back before it was cool.
Yeah, organic baby food company. That was awesome. We were in, you know, the New York Times and in all the mommy magazines and all that. And then the recession hit. That wasn't the greatest thing for me to be doing. I didn't want to go back to high tech. My husband had, from the day we got married, been like, "Can you come help? Can you come help?" And finally, I was like, you know, maybe I'll just
do. So he wanted you to come help.
He wanted, right. And I just was like, maybe I'll do this for a while to shut him up until I figure out something else to do.
He's going to hear this.
I know he is, but he knows the truth. He knows the truth. So we came to the GLM thing because it was in Virginia. My parents live in North Carolina. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll go to this marketing thing with you. But it was really about me.
Was it his idea to come?
It was his idea. He had seen one of Ben's ads. And I was like, sure, I'll go along, because then I get to see my parents, they get to see the baby, and I'll sit in on a few of the sessions, but it'll be boring, so whatever.
But he had a website then.
He did, and in fact, it was being managed by FindLaw. And there's a great story. When I was at Microsoft, his FindLaw website was breaking all the time, and I didn't want to help him. I didn't want to do anything, but it was breaking all the time. And so I got a couple of the geeks in my building to help me figure out what was going wrong with the FindLaw tool. And FindLaw hadn't built it themselves. It was a third-party tool that they'd white-labeled from some little no-name software company in Idaho. And so the Microsoft guys figured out what was going wrong, why it kept breaking the website. And I'm on the phone with FindLaw and 2 geeks from Microsoft trying to, hey, I'm going to help you. Help me help you, right? Solve the problem with your software. They didn't want to talk to me. No. They didn't want to talk to me. And we're like, at that time, you know, I mean, Microsoft's like the Death Star. Hi, I'm calling you from the Death Star to help you improve your weapons, and you don't want to talk to me. So, but it was at that GLM thing, which I did think it was all boring until you got up. You're the one who energized me, because you were given a talk. Like, what was your talk? It was Internet 101 maybe for them. What was it? I don't remember.
I have no idea. I don't remember. I think it was, who knows? It was so long ago.
But you got up, and suddenly somebody's talking about legal marketing who speaks my language.
Well, because you and I both come from software.
Yeah.
And we're both geeks. We both like Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it didn't work.
Dude.
What? Come on. There it goes.
Right. So if you think you're going to still have that thing when I leave, you're wrong. It's going home with me.
Yeah. We got all. So we're both like nerds, so we connected that way, and we just spoke the same language there.
Well, what it was your talk unlocked it for me that, hey, marketing for lawyers isn't any different than any marketing I've ever done before. It's just a different kind of product, right? So if you're a lawyer, your face is the logo, your name is the brand, you are the service, right? Like, there was something clicked for me. It was like the Satori moment when you were giving your presentation. And then the other thing was like, wait, he's up there giving them Internet 101? Don't they already know this? They don't already know this. Well, nobody already knows this.
Cavemen back then.
Exactly. Right. And so I was like, I got this.
Right.
And then we were just off and running.
Yeah, you signed up right away. And I think it was like right then you signed up. Gretchen was just hired. You were the first project, and not soon after, I remember you told me that you wrote 600 articles in one weekend.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Was that an exaggeration?
Maybe only slightly. I think I added 600 pages of content.
Yeah. Well, maybe they were already written, and you had added them. Yeah.
Yeah, I was adding. So at that time, it wasn't.
Because remember, in DSS, we had that counter.
Yeah. And the thing at that time, too, was duplicate content was not a bad thing.
Yeah.
At that time. So you could find articles elsewhere on the Reddit. Right. It was crazy. It was the Wild West. Yes. So, yeah. So I did.
But you catapulted yourself to page one and everything.
Yeah. Well, remember the very next, not even a year later, GLM, we came and I was speaking and I pulled up, we did a Seattle car accident attorney or whatever search, and then every single one
was you, yeah.
Result was us.
Right.
That would never, we melted people's brains.
Right. The good old days.
Yeah.
That's when you could have multiple websites and all that stuff.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
So that was fun. But yeah, so working with you guys, you specifically got me energized that, yeah, this is something I could do.
So you joined up and decided to partner up with Chris as his COO, running the business and doing the marketing. What's that like? What's that been like?
Well, I got to say, I didn't think I'd be doing it long because most couples can't work together, right? And we don't really work together. Like, he's the lawyer, he's doing all that stuff. I mean, technically, I'm not even an employee of the firm, right? I'm just the wife who happens to solve problems, right? So the computers, the phones, the stuff he doesn't want to do, the stuff that's not the law, and all the, the marketing and the website and all that. But technically, I'm not even an employee.
Yeah, but you run all the other stuff, don't you? Payroll and all that, everything? All the operations stuff?
Yeah. But
okay. All right. But I mean,
I do what any good wife would do, which is help her husband with whatever.
Sure. Yes, you're good. Very good. So, but here's the thing is, over all these years, I have known you and Chris, and I've known other couples in this, lawyers and their spouses do the same thing. Mm-hmm. They've been inspired by what you guys have done successfully, and
yeah, I know several husband-wife teams who they're like, they were going to a GLM and the wife was just going to go shopping while he was in the session, and then I give a talk, and then the husband's like, get your butt over here, you need you in here. And then, so yeah, I know 2 or 3 couples like that who, then the wives are calling me periodically and we're sharing stuff. And
then there's some that both of them are lawyers, like the Breyer is very successful.
Oh yeah. Those guys are marketing geniuses. Yeah, they're marketing geniuses.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, you're an entrepreneur, obviously. That has helped you guys in the business. You're a marketing nerd, as we've just disclosed. How has that curiosity helped you?
So, well, you and I were talking earlier and yesterday about there's this art and a science to marketing. So you have to constantly be curious and asking questions, not just what works, what doesn't, but what does the audience care about? What do the clients care about? What is our service? I mean, there's the who, what, where, why, when question constantly. And some of those questions can be answered by data. A lot of them can. What makes people click on this, that, what drives people to the website. There's a whole lot of that. But a lot of it, it's intangible. It's human relationships. Yeah. It's the clients are injured and scared and uncertain about their family's future because of a life-changing injury. There's no data that's going to tell you anything about that. Right? Or the cultural things. Like, I know a lot of times when I'm talking to lawyers, so say somebody, they're from, I don't know, Virginia or Georgia, and they're like, Mischelle, what about this, that, and the other? Well, this is what works for us, but the culture is different in Seattle. I think one of the things that's going to be hard for law firms that want to be national law firms and have offices all over is the culture is really different from place to place, and the politics and religion and all those things that play into who people are, right? The industries that are there, the history of the place. So all of that you have to, that's the art part, right? There's no science, no data analysis that's going to tell you what's going to work. You have to be there and be a member of the community and be communicating with people and have relationships to find that part out. So it's a balance of, I'm the biggest data nerd ever. I mean, I just killed Buster yesterday. I melted his brain with some data. But then there's the intangible relationship stuff.
It's funny because many times over the years, people are like, well, what does Mischelle think? Or what does Mischelle do? Because everybody thinks that you just got this down, and everybody thinks that you just knock it out of the park all the time. And I'm not saying that you don't knock
we
it out.
We fail a lot.
Well, sure, everybody does. And this is kind of the lesson, is that this is a journey, and you are always striving to get better. And as is Chris and Ian, Ian is your marketing person, and getting better and better and taking more responsibility in the firm. And you have not, you've fallen. You've scraped your knees many times, right?
You have to be willing to invest in failure.
Right.
This is the
Try
thing.
New things.
A lot of these guys that I meet at conferences and stuff, they're looking for, we talked about this a bunch yesterday. Yeah. It's crazy. They're looking for the golden egg or the solution, the one thing. What's the one thing I can do? Or, the
purple pill.
Right. What are the 3 things I do? And if I do those things, then I'll be successful. There's no such thing.
Right.
It's constantly evolving and changing, right? The world is, the world is different now than it was in 2000, right? Everything's constantly changing. So you and your marketing should be changing, and you should be investing every year in risks. But you have to measure, you have to test and measure. So I might invest $10,000 in trying some new marketing thing for 3 months or whatever, but measure the heck out of it to find out if it works or not. And I don't view, if it doesn't work, that it's failure. I view that I paid tuition to the School of Life to find out that thing didn't work, and we're not going to do that. But then I never assume that will never work again. I might try that same thing again in 3 years or 4 years at some point, because I know that the world changes. And so I don't say that never works. That doesn't work. I will say that didn't work for us when we tried it back in, 2010. Might it work today? I don't know.
Right.
The world's changed,
changes.
You have to be willing to always be wrong and always not know, right? Try something new.
We spent a fair amount of time, a couple hours yesterday, going over the marketing growth plan. Mm-hmm. You and Ian and I.
Which is brilliant. People have to pay attention to that. I hope all your customers pay attention to that.
I have to give Zach a lot of credit for helping me put that together. But yeah, it's really your marketing plan that you need, and it's the big picture. And you have most of those things. I don't want to say complete, because it's never complete, but you just want to check those things off. And you go through the process, and then at the very end of that, it's measure, analyze, and fix. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what we're doing with you. And there's so many great things that you're already doing. But there's so many, even we're looking at that, oh, wow, if we tweak this, let's try this. Because we're just looking at a lot of your email campaigns that many of them are so successful. But wow, if we just change some of the subject lines, if we change some of these calls to action, could we make them even more successful?
Yeah, we were looking at one
Right.
that had a huge open rate and a huge click rate,
Right.
but I wasn't getting calls from.
Right.
Right. So it's only a partial success. Like, you have to look at everything. But, the other thing I just thought of when you were talking about your growth plan is most attorneys I know, when I talk to them in different places, they'll say, well, what about this? What about that? And I'll be like, well, you need that in your marketing plan. They don't have written marketing plans.
Oh, nobody.
They think they don't need them. They think it's like going to slow them down, or like, but we have a written marketing plan every year with sections, goals, programs, measurements. This is how we'll know if we succeeded or not, right? Like, there's a whole formula. And then come December, January, Ian and I are going back. And we'll do a write-up for Chris. This was last year's marketing plan, and here's where we were successful and here's where we failed.
Yeah,
right.
good.
No, lawyers don't do that.
Well, listen, if you go to fwmgrowth.com, you can get our marketing plan and use that. You don't need to create your own.
Exactly.
Just go by that.
Exactly.
So here, Cole, make sure they put on the bottom third, fwmgrowth.com, when this podcast goes out, because they can get that. It doesn't cost them anything, and you can use that as a template to run, because it works, right? I mean,
right. Without that plan, you can't hold your employees or your vendors who are doing your market, or yourself, accountable.
It's your money. I mean, like, that's the thing, is that you have to spend the money to get the business. You need to be smart about it, and don't listen to other lawyers. Right? We were talking about that too.
Oh my God!
All those other guys are just going to BS you.
Well, what we were talking about is lawyer egos, and none of them want to admit that they don't know, or that they've done things that have failed, or that the things they've done that are working are not. They'll embellish.
Not all of you.
Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Yeah.
And then I think,
you know who you are.
Yeah, some lawyers are just tricky. Like, they'll do misinformation campaigns to other lawyers, and so
to justify what they're spending.
Yeah.
But hey, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a constant problem. It needs attention. It needs the business owner's constant attention. It's like the cobbler's kid who has no shoes, right? Like, if you're not investing the time and giving the attention and doing a marketing plan, or making your people do one and hold them to it, then you're just flushing money down the toilet.
That made me, let's change direction.
Okay.
Because I wanted to talk about something that happened years and years and years ago. And it's the Natasha Richardson.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The
Chris on Anderson Cooper.
Yes, and so, because I remember I was playing pool with Buster one evening, and you called me up, and you're like, you won't believe this. And it was the very sad, unfortunate ski accident with Natasha Richardson, who is Liam Neeson's wife, who unfortunately passed away in a ski accident. And obviously big news because she's a celebrity. And what happens is that these producers, they need to get the news up, and they need to go, and they're doing research. And what do? They go out and they're looking for, is there a legal case? Are they going to sue the ski resort? And what are they going to go do? Where do they go? They went to Google, and they search for brain injury lawyer, whatever they search for. They find Chris.
They were looking for a wrongful death attorney who understood brain injury cases and who understood ski resorts and ski accidents. And that's all Chris. And Chris is, by the way, one of the best skiers you've ever seen.
They cross-checked that with his Facebook.
So his Facebook profile page at that time was him skiing with teaching Jackson how to ski. And so they called to get him to go live on Anderson Cooper 360 with Dr. Sanjay Gupta to discuss the case. And we'd been doing a lot of PR then for his cases. A lot of his cases have already been on the news when they come to us, or they're a matter of public interest or public safety, and so they end up getting on the news, and so that was something we had to manage. What was really important is there was no way CNN was going to have somebody on live who'd never given an interview before and that they were worried about being live. And so they could also see on his YouTube channel that he'd done lots of TV before, live TV,
Yes.
and then that they could trust that he was going to be okay. All of that, and that he was, dressed well and all that, because news outlets don't want to diminish their brand by making the wrong choice of who to interview, right? So they could see that he was a low risk. And so we had to go down to the local TV station and do that live via satellite. And it was great. I loved seeing him on there.
Sure.
He did a great job. And I think there's a lot of attorneys who are like, well, what do you have to do to get on CNN? The downside of that for us is Chris isn't licensed to practice everywhere. And we got an onslaught of calls from all over the country. And so I focus much more on local media now. People will say, how come Chris hasn't been on CNN again? I'm like, I don't want him on CNN again, right? Maybe for the right case, but by and large, no, I want him to be focused on, the community we live in and the cases that we handle there. So, but it was a great experience.
It was great because, and I just want everybody listening because you said it, there was a lot of things that went into that to make that happen. One, you had content on your website. The social media backed it up that he was an accomplished skier and he knew what he was talking about. And he had experience being on camera. Yeah. And obviously he was a professional and he wouldn't embarrass the network. Right. If you got, and it's still on the website.
Still on our website, the YouTube channel. And I think what was great, because I'd given him a lot of media.
And that happened like within hours, right?
Oh yeah. They called up at like 1:30 in the afternoon our time, and I think we had to be at the station 4:30. Yeah. The other thing that was back before I made sure he kept nice clothes at the office all the time. So he had to run home, get clothes, there was a big scatter. But that was kind of the thing.
He's an athlete. He's a sports guy, right?
Yeah.
So he's usually wearing his polo shirts and stuff.
But for whatever that day, he was in jeans. But what was great is because he'd done live TV before, if you watch the whole thing, Anderson will go, we'll talk, then he'll go to Sanjay, then he'll come back, then he'll go to Chris, blah, blah, blah. So when he was making transitions, like from Sanjay to Chris would be like, that's right, Sanjay. That's right, Anderson. Conversate. Like he knew, because I'd already taken him through media training by then, and he knew to talk in sound bites. I was in the studio with him, and I was like adjusting his jacket and everything before. He knew to look in the camera. It was good all the way around because he was ready for it.
Joining us tonight, Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who's a neurosurgeon, and attorney Chris Davis, who specializes in medical malpractice and personal injuries. Chris, could the ski resort be liable in her death?
Well, I think that's a possibility. I think there's some serious questions that need to be answered. From my understanding, initially, it was reported that she received fairly prompt medical attention, and now we're learning from reports that perhaps the EMT or the emergency crew never even made contact with her.
Right. The ambulance said that they basically saw her from a distance, but that she had declined to be treated by them.
Yeah, and that raises a serious question because certainly in our jurisdiction, when an emergency crew arrives on the scene, they have a duty to at least make contact with the person that's been injured, check that person out, ask the person questions, especially in cases of head injury, when oftentimes the person's, the judgment is the first thing that may go.
Chris, at this point, what else as an attorney would you look at?
Well, I would certainly look at the situation. I look at a case and I say, okay, what was done? How could have this incident been prevented? Either what was done or not done that contributed to this horrific event. And I certainly would start with the resort and their policies and procedures. Did they have those in place? Were they followed in this situation when somebody's being taken off the hill after an injury?
Does it also raise questions to you that the resort came out very quickly? They were the initial source on a lot of the information that was out there days ago, and they were the ones who were saying, look, it was an hour, and she was walking around and laughing, and now, according to this ambulance, it was actually 4 hours.
Yeah, I mean, that's very questionable and suspicious. And like Dr. Gupta said, I find it hard to believe, given that there's a death here, that she did not exhibit some clear head injury symptoms soon after the initial trauma, like feeling dazed and disoriented and you know, acting, the feeling that she's not herself.
Chris Davis, I want to thank you.
Yeah, and they keep asking him because he's been on them before, right?
Yeah, so in our market, he gets calls from the media, you know, because several people have interviewed him multiple times. They need a legal analysis of something. They might be calling him about a recent disaster to ask his opinion, and it's not even a case we're working on. Or there's some reporters that it's a slow news day and they know the kinds of cases that we handle, and so we might get calls and say, hey, what you got for me? Right? I need something. And we're happy to oblige them if we can, if it's in the best interest of the case and if the client agrees. Right? So, yeah, so he's on TV a good bit. There's years where he's super busy and he may only do 2 or 3 interviews in a year. And they're like, one year I know he had 26 interviews in the whole year. Wow. Right? Between newspaper and TV, and, you know, it sort of depends on what kind of year it is.
So if you're marketing, I mean, obviously you do content, you do all that stuff, but you do television ads? Mm-hmm. Are you still doing that? You do off and on?
Yeah, so I think TV's in a huge transition. Right. I don't know how much longer we're going to do that. The returns are diminishing all the time.
But you try it. I know that you have over the years. You've done, you know, gangbusters. You pulled it back. Right. You tried different things.
Test and measure. Yeah, test and measure. There's a lot of cord pullers. So right now, I think our sweet spot of, you know, demographics, they're beginning to age out of TV and become cord pullers, and so we have to look at. That is
fascinating what you just said, that you're going to have to explain that to people, what you just said.
Cord puller?
Yeah.
So there's so like you look at Ian, who came with me, right? So Ian's in his early 30s. They don't have cable TV at their house, right? So Chris and I are watching network television.
Because what you're saying is your perfect client, right? Mm-hmm. This is your perfect client, and where is your perfect client? Right?
Yeah, they're not so much on TV anymore, right? And then
not on live TV, right? Like cable TV,
right? And then digital TV. I know a lot of attorneys are moving toward digital TV, or sometimes called OTT, other things, but I'm not thoroughly convinced that that's the thing yet either. It's a game changer what's happening with TV, or look at podcasts. So here we are, we're doing a podcast. People can listen to this or watch it, right? This is something that people are doing now rather than listening to the radio, right? And when you listen to the radio,
we hope so,
right? But so radio's changing and radio's dying and everything's getting hyper segmented. Right. So for me to say, oh yeah, I'm going to move to digital TV or move to podcast, digital radio, whatever, it's now so hyper segmented that for me to get in there, right? I mean, it can be more trouble than it's worth, you know, like, I don't know. Everything, it's just changing. So sure. I have to be willing to try new things, new mediums, new communication channels, new modes of reaching people, right? Because it's changing all the time. Just like the Yellow Pages. When I first got into legal marketing, there were still tons of attorneys who were investing a ton in Yellow Pages. When I married Chris, I remember being in his office when he was making his Yellow Page ad buy.
His ad.
And he spent $75,000 on that. And I remember nearly choking because I'm like, honey, what? People don't go into the phone book. They search on the internet. He's like, oh no, you know, but now the Yellow Pages are gone. I don't know any attorneys.
Some places still work. Rural places,
yeah.
And that's
but it's the same way. TV and radio are doing the same thing right now. And so I just don't know how. I mean, I'll keep trying, testing, measuring, than revisiting later. But I don't know that these things are going to continue to work.
And remember what Mischelle said at the top of the program, that, this is her she's in Seattle, and it's a little more high tech there,
Oh, we have high, the education level is much higher.
Yeah.
The gross or average income is much higher for people. It's totally different. We have a huge immigrant population from Asia and India who've come to be high-tech workers, right? So it's just different.
So it's really important to, when she says demographic, that's another word for a perfect client. It's really important to know who your perfect client is that you want to work with every day, and that that obviously defines what kind of marketing you're going to be doing. So we're talking about the kind of marketing that you're going to be that you're doing, that you've tried in the past. Another thing that you've done very successfully that I don't think you're really doing anymore, you just said, was radio. Because I remember you raving about that not long ago.
Yeah, we're still doing some radio, but I think it's going the same way. It's just radio listenership is way down, right? So what do you listen to in your car? You're listening to satellite radio or Pandora, right?
Spotify.
Or Spotify, yeah, right?
Yeah.
So, but
no commercials.
Right? 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Would you have ever thought you'd be doing that? No,
you have no choice. And every now and then, I'll listen to XM in my car because I want to hear a human voice, but no ads, no thanks.
Yeah.
If I hear an ad, if I'm on a channel with ads, I think something's wrong.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and a lot of the content, the news content, right, the talk content is stuff that's being sent out through satellite, like Dr. Laura, for example, right? Dr. Laura's there, or she's got people subscribing to her podcast, or they're doing stuff on her website. It's all, there's just so much more going on. Marketing is getting more complicated and more complex all the time rather than easier. Technology is not making marketing easier. It's more difficult, which is why your marketing plan and your perfect client is so important. I'm so glad that you're pushing your customers to do that. What's the URL again for them to go to?
Thank you, Mischelle. fwmgrowth.com.
Yeah. So, but it's super important because when it's so segmented, fragmented, and there's so many choices, right? If you don't have all that down and you don't have a plan, it's real easy to get whipped around. The other thing you and I were talking about last night at dinner was how attorneys will go to these conferences and they'll get sold, right?
Yeah, because they want, everybody else in the room has been sold and they don't want to be sold alone. Remember the crab story?
Yeah.
And so they, they're all like, this 20 grand I spent was the best thing ever because I don't want to be the only knucklehead that spent the 20 grand.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Or just because the vendors that paid to be at that conference are there doesn't mean they're the best vendors for you. And you got to remember, and this blows my mind that we have to remind attorneys of this, people who negotiate for a living, right? People who depose people for a living. Depose the vendors. Yeah. Right? Treat it like it's a deposition and dig in and ask deep questions.
Yeah, do some discovery.
Yes. Yeah.
Do your own due diligence.
Exactly.
Just
and
go
they
to Google
don't.
and just check reviews.
Oh my God, Tom, but do you know how many attorneys I talk to? I'm sure you do. That they're like, yeah, we tried such and such and it didn't work and that was such a waste of money. Those guys ripped us off, whatever. And you start asking them what sort of due diligence process they did at the beginning, and there was none. Right. The attorneys turn into kindergartners when they're making those choices, and you're the customer, you're the one with the money, you're the one with all the power, right? If the company can't handle you deposing them to find out and get real data and customers to talk to and all that, if they're not going to give you that, don't waste your time, and don't believe their BS excuses why they can't give it to you.
There you go. I wanted to talk to you about offers. So you've got a lot of offers.
We do.
When I'm talking about offers, I'm talking about books. How many do you have?
I think we have 10 or 12. Yeah.
So that's been a successful campaign for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So...
You're working on another one too now?
We probably do a new one every year about something or other. So I think the types of I don't want to say too much right now because I don't want to, but we're going to be changing the types of offers, right? So, but offers are important, and they're important for your measurement. So when I was at that first GLM where I saw you, right? The other thing that was like, brilliant was the offers, the books. And we had done something similar in high tech back in the day when I was working for a company that sold directly to CFOs or COOs, is we would write these technical white papers, right? So same thing. It was a different form, more technical information marketing, but that was part of the sequence of taking them, through learning more about us and us about them. So to me, the books were just like something I was already used to doing. And I had worked for a company where, even actually when I was at Microsoft, where we had tons of offers on the Microsoft webpage, and people would have to download offers and give us their email. Like, it just made sense to me. It's how you can measure if something's working. So all these attorneys who are doing ads, like, if you've been injured, call me, they don't know if that's working. They don't know if that ad works. They really don't. Right. They can say they do, but they don't. We're not selling Chris. We're not selling an attorney. We're offering the free book, because whether somebody's injured or not, I now have a measurement, right? And we ask them if they're injured or not. So there's the I'm just curious, right? And then there's the I'm ordering a book for a friend or a loved one, and then there's the I'm injured, and right. So I know who my ad's reaching. Is it reaching who I want or not? I have a way to measure responses for when an ad runs, right? So it gave me, the books give us that. And we give, I think we're probably in the 60,000 book range right now that we've given away. Actually, probably more.
So I was pretty much blown away when I opened up DSS and I saw your traffic yesterday.
Oh, yesterday. Don't say that number out loud to anybody.
Why can't I, please?
I don't want any.
It was 45,000. There, I did it.
Oh,
that's
damn
a month.
You. Yeah.
So that's pretty impressive, but that's a lot of years of work.
Yeah.
And that's not, that just doesn't happen. And you continue to, and that's not without, bumps and scrapes along the way.
We've tanked our own website before. We tanked it about a year and a half ago. We tanked our own website.
Right, but there was other things too. And this is just really a lesson because we all think that, and the point is, don't be so complacent and comfortable because one, you had an issue with the website when you were really just trying to make it better.
Mm-hmm. You know what? We failed. We learned what not to do. I don't look at it as a bad thing that had happened. We learned a ton from that.
Right. And so did we.
And so did you guys. And in fixing that, we made it better.
And and we ended up making a really cool, ultra powerful tool as a result. Which
is a nuclear weapon. I don't think you want that in the hands of all your customers. But which, by the way, thank you. Yeah. Right? We had a problem. We were trying to solve it. This is why a company like yours is in the Goldilocks zone, right? If you were any smaller, you wouldn't have the technical expertise in-house to have been able to figure that out with me. If you were any bigger, I'd be such a small customer that you wouldn't care about me. But because you're in the Goldilocks zone, when I had this problem and you were able to see that in helping me solve the problem, you're helping yourself and all your other customers, it worked out for everybody.
Well, I think that, remembering back to that time, it was really everybody here. It's, we're friends. Chris is a friend. You guys are longtime clients. Obviously,
I was crying when I called you.
Yes, but it was the team that jumped on it and figured out how to do it. Everybody kind of pulled together and figured out how to do that. What happened was, everybody that's interested is, you guys deleted Like,
we were deleting a lot of content,
well,
as you should.
You
were doing a content audit.
But you just did it the wrong way.
We did it the wrong way. We were deleting content that wasn't useful, was no longer relevant, was duplicate or not enough content on a page. Right. And in doing the redirects,
you just redirected them wrong.
It was all wrong. It was so
you just got all
wrong.
Redirected to the homepage or something
yeah,
like that.
We had an intern doing it.
Right.
We chose the wrong person to do it, and they made poor choices.
And it was too much.
Too much, too fast.
And it sent all the wrong signals. Anyway, it was a mess. And so we ended up creating what we call internally the 301 redirect tool, which allowed us to bring everything back and then redirect it properly.
Yeah. So I have to add to that. Before this happened, we were number 1 or number 2 organically in any Google search. And then we ended up like bottom of page 2, top of page 3. That's how bad it was. Right. It was really bad.
And so that cost business. But then also at the same time, the phone thing.
Just as we started to solve that problem, our phone system had a lot of issues. So who your phone vendor is, AT&T or Comcast or, you name them. Nowadays, a lot of those phone solutions are delivered basically over the internet. It's voice over IP, which they, like any software company, or, there's different hardware, different vendors, different integration, stuff getting upgraded at different times. And there was just a huge compatibility issue that resulted in us missing a third of all incoming phone calls. And it wasn't until clients and opposing counsel and other people trying to reach us were like, I'm getting nothing, that we finally figured it out. But so then I switched phone companies twice in the same year. And I'm now on good old fashioned POTS lines, hardwired. If the power goes out, we still have phones lines, old fashioned lines. Because I can't count on voice over IP technology right now. When it's transitioning so quickly, it's not giving me the reliability. So I'm on old-fashioned POTS lines in the office.
So, that's fascinating. And, those are all the things that you have to be monitoring.
Yeah. It's a big deal.
You have a volume lead business that you need to be monitoring, right?
Yeah.
You need to be looking at all of these leads to see if it's an opportunity. And that's, anyway, it's a big job.
Well, now when we were always watching the lead count every month. We have always been doing that. But now we're not just saying, well, this marketing is working and that marketing's not working. We're making sure that everything's operationally sound and there's not something else going on. Right? Is the website down? Are the phones down? Like, we're going to ask all those questions every time.
So we were just talking about the tools. So I think that's probably a good segue to talk about technical stuff and DSS.
Yeah.
And I just want to, everybody that's listening or watching, you're probably one of our biggest power users.
Most demanding customer.
And that's not saying anything about you, Steve Richardson, because you're another big power user. But Mischelle, you probably get most credit for the most features. Well,
13 years of asking for stuff. So, which, thank you, by the way. My big Christmas present this year was a feature I've been asking for like 10 years.
Oh, multi-select.
Yeah.
So that was the being able to have content be
assigned to multiple
practice areas or whatever. So it used to be you could only assign it to one. Now you can assign it to multiple things.
Love
that was a big thing.
Love that. But there's so many features that I asked for that you guys. I really. This is the thing too that makes you guys unique. It's the partnership thing, right? I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it to most people, but it's
Are you getting weepy over there?
I'm verklempt. No, but I mean, and there's only a few people in this legal marketing industry that I think come at it from this point of view, like you and my buddy Conrad. Like, you guys are different in how you view your customers as family, right? That if their business is failing, they're an extension of you, and you really care about that. I mean, seriously, because I get calls all the time, like all firms do, about all kinds of marketing stuff. But there's very few of them out there that it's about the relationship, and that it's about the relationship.
It really is. And, I didn't really set out to make DSS, WordPress, or, giant software program. It wasn't really, I just kind of fell backwards into it.
Well, there wasn't anything like that back then.
Yeah. If I started this with WordPress out there already, I might not have done it. Who knows? But I'm happy about it because I think it's better. It's better because, like you said, we can make changes, and it's faster, and it's not a Frankenstein operation like WordPress, Infusionsoft, HubSpot, whatever.
Yeah, there might be clients that, and I mean, I can say this because you said this, there might be people that WordPress is the right choice for them, right?
As a matter of fact, there's other websites that we even manage that's fine.
Yeah.
Just stay on WordPress. It's just fun for that.
Right. So there's certain people that's totally right for. There's a lot of lawyers, though, I think, who having that much unchecked control, that they're going to screw it up for themselves. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it's too easy for them when they can control because that's something that I hear a lot. Attorneys will be like, well, but I want more control. Well, listen, nobody wants more control than Mischelle Davis, right? So I understand that, but I think if you don't have the technical acumen, if you don't have the people internally on your team to make sure that the widget that you're implementing, adding to your WordPress site, comes from a trustworthy source. If you're not, I mean, it's a lot to manage one of those sites with lots of integrations into it to make sure all the updates are happening so things don't break. I love this. There is an attorney in our market who their web forms don't work and they have no idea. Right? No, I'm not going to tell them. They're on a WordPress site and they don't know. And I wouldn't know if somebody hadn't come to us and said, yeah, I submitted a form on their website like 5 times and they never called me. Right.
Always check your forms, everybody.
Right. But that's right. And so that's a case of you got all that control, but you don't know how to manage it. And I've definitely seen, there's a good friend of ours who's an employment attorney in Seattle, has a WordPress site. And I keep telling him he needs to do something, but he's not updating it constantly, all the little widgets and all this stuff. And so it keeps breaking and failing, right? So there's nobody's home, right? So there's some people that would work for, but there's a lot of people, if you're not going to manage it yourself, right? That's not the right solution at all.
And that's just a piece of what's in DSS. That's just the CMS part. The CRM, which is the, Infusionsoft or MailChimp or whatever you want, a constant contact that we have. Mm-hmm. That's it. And you just saw a big enhancement coming for that.
I know.
Which is the email cleaner and the email grader and all that stuff that's cool. Coming that Infusionsoft doesn't have.
Yeah. So super cool.
Yeah.
So
excited about
I think
all in one.
The other thing too is a lot of people talk about DSS being proprietary, mm-hmm. and there's pros and cons to that, right? And one of the big pros is it's not open source, so somebody else can get into your website and do a lot of damage to it. When you're on a platform that's open source and you've put in a widget or something that basically gives that bad guy a back door into your site to steal your data, which, I mean, if you got to worry about being HIPAA compliant and all that is a big deal. So, you know, I mean, there's...
Or those free widgets that you put in there slow things down. You don't know. They break if they're not keeping up with it. You know, all that stuff. You're like, oh, cool. Blip, blip. Or a guy that built your website last year who's great. Mm-hmm. Or you got them on Fiverr or whatever. You think you're just getting a great deal. And then they're gone, right? I mean, this happens. I mean...
Yeah, I just think there's pros and cons to both. You have to make the right choice for where you are at that time, right? And most importantly, you've got to find vendors that you trust. All these guys who have like the Fiverr guy or somebody they've never met or their wife's nephew and doing their website. So this is one of the things. So WordPress, because it's basically... it's almost as easy as Microsoft Word to use. It means anybody can sell themselves as a WordPress guy,
right,
and convince you that they can handle it because they can make something look good.
And it looks good, yeah.
Right, but you don't know that under the covers it's a big mess. So whatever you're going to choose, if WordPress is the way you want to go, then at least find somebody who's trustworthy.
Okay, so we were talking yesterday at dinner about, you know, it's always a choice about whether or not you want to outsource or hire in. And there's pros and cons to both, right? Mm-hmm. I think that it's always good to start with outsourcing until it makes sense to hire within, right? Do you agree? Or?
I agree. I think you have to look at the fully burdened cost of having somebody in-house. The salary, giving them an office, benefits, a computer, all that. And then what you're paying a vendor to do whatever it is you would have that person do. Like, so you need to spreadsheet that, right? If that person has the right expertise, having somebody in-house will always be better because they'll understand you and your firm and what makes you different and the cases and the clients. Right?
If you get the right person.
If you get the right person, which is critical. J-test.
Yeah. That J-test is J. Henderson, jhenderson.org or realtalenthiring.com.
Right.
Or .net.
Right.
Can't remember.
One of those.
One of those.
Google J. Henderson.
J. Henderson is the guy you need to talk to about hiring anybody.
But having somebody in-house that understands the uniqueness of you, because... it's the other thing we talked about yesterday a lot is be different. So we have quote unquote competitors, but they're different. The kind of cases they take are different. Who the lawyers are different. You know, the personality, the approach to cases. There's a lot of the people who are quote unquote competitors who don't file lawsuits or don't go to trial, but we do. There's 100 things that make us different. Only somebody who's in-house and knows you and knows your business and knows your clients is really going to understand that at a core level, what makes you different, right? Mm-hmm. And a vendor, unless they're a Goldilocks vendor like you, right, that you're not too big, not too small, so you really get to know your clients. But if you're using somebody, I mean, we could name a whole bunch of companies that have so many clients, it's ridiculous. They're not going to remember how you're different. They're not going to care how you're distinct. They want to put you in the plan, in the program, get you like everybody else, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's a problem because you're not unique, right? Your unique selling point. I just came up with that today, you being in the Goldilocks zone, but it's true.
Well, thanks for that. And I think that, you know, that's anybody's prerogative about if they want to have that kind of control and manage somebody, and they have this vision of what they want their website or anything to look like, and they want to pay for that person to be on staff, it's fine. It's perfectly, and we've had clients do that. Great, go do that. Enjoy. It's a lot harder than you think it is. I know that for sure. Yeah, we've had some people go and try that for a little bit and come back and say, no, thank you. Because it's more, obviously, than just building a website in WordPress. It's servicing the website, all the SEO, all the content. You know what kind of crew I've got back there that keeps things running.
Right. For us, and we've been a client longer than anybody, what works for us is a mixed model. So we have in-house people who are doing content, managing the website, working with your guys. But then there's a lot of services that you guys offer that we're doing. We're probably exchanging 2 or 3 emails with you guys every day about whatever, keeping you informed of what we're doing, even if it doesn't have anything to do with what you do, right? That's really important. And then the other thing is we also have other vendors we use for stuff too, right? You have to have like the LinkedIn team of rivals. So we're working with you, working with your competitors, and like there's a little triangulation.
I don't know that. I'm in denial of all of that.
No, but that's important
That's a
stuff.
good thing. Lincoln team of rivals. I know exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's super important. Yeah. It's super important.
Keeps you on edge.
Yeah. So, we're constantly mixing it up. But I think the mixed, we're an extension of you of us.
I don't have any competitors, Mischelle.
No, you don't, Tom.
I don't.
There's nobody like you.
Well, I mean,
no,
let's
but
talk about that for a minute.
You're remarkable that you work with competitors sometimes. Like, I love that about you. You're not threatened.
No, well, of course. I mean, I think that there's other. Sure, of course. I mean, but what I want to talk about with that is because you said it a minute ago that you don't really have competitors. There's no competitor for Chris Davis. And we were talking about this yesterday, and people that I talk to all the time, the brand Chris Davis, there's no competitor for that.
Right.
For clients that he's, served in the past, that he's worked with, there's no competition for that as long as that relationship remains.
Well, if I look at our closest competitor who's a good marketer, who's a guy who's very, very involved in PILMA, we like this guy. We've been to lunch with this guy. We hang out with this guy at conferences. We really like him. And he's an aggressive marketer, right? And I mean, I guess technically we're competing for cases, but he kind of, sort of, but not really. He's a different guy than Chris Davis. He has a different approach. He manages his office differently. And for a potential client who's going to visit us and them, if their office is a better emotional fit for that person, then that's where that person should go.
Exactly.
Right? And if we're a better fit for what's going on, then this is where they should come.
Exactly.
But we're not like all threatened by the fact that that person is an aggressive marketer. He's really, really different personality-wise, and he might be the best choice for some people.
It's kind of like Nike and Adidas, or Puma. You're going to choose which one you like better,
which one fits better
for you,
right?
I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And so if Chris Davis has worked with somebody in the past and it's a great relationship, it worked out great, and that person will be like, wow, this guy was great, Chris is great, they're going to tell all their friends. People buy from people they like, and they are going to shout from the mountaintop. And this is what I continue to try to get across to all the lawyers out there, is that instead of focusing on the ocean of people that do not know you, and I'm not saying don't do that. They shun everybody, all their past clients, everybody that they've worked with. Immediately after the case is closed or done, that's a done deal.
Yeah. So who does the best job of this client cultivation, past client cultivation, are the Bryers.
I was about to say that.
Yeah. So Mark and Alexis Breyer in Phoenix, the husband-wife law team. I love those guys.
They are. You study them because they are just fantastic at everything.
I have so many great personal fun stories about them too that we'll talk about.
I get to see them every year with Dave Freeze at the Business Black Ops.
Yeah, so they're just love them. Great. But it's super, super important to Mark as a person. Mark, this is why it's easy for him to do it as a marketing thing, because it's really important to him as a person to maintain those relationships. They have 8 kids. They're all about family. Every client is a family member to them. That's who they are at their core. Yeah. So it's easy for them to do that piece. But there's a lot of lawyers that would be really unnatural to do.
Oh, it is.
That's
like I say that to them. They're like, huh? To so many lawyers, I say, why don't you just send a newsletter? They're like, what?
Right, it's so unnatural.
They'd rather send, pay-per-click.
So maybe something else is a better choice for them, because if you can't embrace it and totally and believe it like it was religion,
that's true. Maybe
then maybe it's not the best choice, because then you're just going to look like you're faking it, or as my dad used to say, you're half-assing it, right? Like, put both buns in the chair. If you're not going to do that, then don't do it.
That's another good point, is be authentic. You have to be authentic, otherwise people see right through it.
They do. So maybe something else is a better choice, but for those people, and I'm getting more into that groove all the time, and I think it's more of the art piece of the art and science of marketing. There's all the things to be true, like you and I know, newsletters and cultivating your past clients, we know, but if it's unnatural, then don't do it.
One thing though that I think works for everybody no matter what is that lawyers categorize themselves, and they shouldn't.
Oh yeah, this thing you were telling me about yesterday.
Yes. We as consumers, the regular people, do not categorize lawyers. We don't. And I remember when I was a young man and my daughter was born, my first daughter, Tori, and she was a preemie. She was 3 months early.
Oh, wow.
And she was 2.5 pounds when she was born. And I remember that my wife and I the doctor was off like sleeping or whatever, and I of course blamed the doctor, and I was 23 years old, and I was like, I gotta sue someone or whatever, and I called my uncle, who's a lawyer, my second uncle, and
your uncle twice removed.
Well, he's my Uncle Henry, who's no longer with us, but I asked Uncle Henry, what do I, and he was like, well, I'm not a medical malpractice lawyer. And I had no idea what that was. Mm-hmm. And he was just kind of like, you should talk to one of those, but you probably don't really have a case or whatever. And I just kind of like let it go. And that was way before I was even involved in lawyers. I was back in software. But I remember that now, because that's how most people are. They don't really categorize lawyers the way lawyers categorize themselves. Now, of course, people that have never experienced a lawyer and they go to Google and they type in whatever's happening to them, an event that's happening to them. But once they have a lawyer, they will go to that lawyer for everything. Mm-hmm. And I think that everybody I've asked this question always agrees with me. And I want to ask you, do people come to Chris or you guys for pretty much anything?
Yeah, especially because Chris grew up in Seattle, right? And he went to the University of Washington in Seattle. So all of his old high school buds who follow him on Facebook, and all of his old college buddies and frat bros and all that, all they know is my friend who I know, Chris Davis, is a lawyer. So they call him for anything.
Yeah.
And
DUI, criminal, bankruptcy.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever, right?
Everything.
Divorce, family.
All of it.
But he is a personal injury lawyer.
Right. So he has, so we have a list of who we refer them to for those things. Right. But he'll sit on the phone with a past client or a friend or frat bro, whatever, and let them vent on, what just happened, and then say, look, I'm so sorry. I wish I could help with you. Especially like the criminal stuff, some of that stuff he did when he was a really young lawyer. Right. I haven't done that stuff in so long. I wouldn't be the best choice. I wouldn't serve you, but here's who I would trust. Here's who I've sent other friends or family members to, or, whatever. But yeah, they're going to call him first.
So this is really, really important, because all of these people that call you should be on your list, because no matter what area of law you do, at some point the opportunity may be that they will need you, and whether it's your plaintiff lawyer or a criminal lawyer, So if you're a criminal lawyer and they call you because they're in an accident, you can't help them, you can refer them to somebody else. You do not ever want to say, no, I can't help you, and make them go away. You always want them to call you, and you want to be their lawyer.
Well, so what's important about that, everything you said is true, but even the potential client who's calling, right? I mean, the little script that somebody in our office will say, or if I was talking to him, I would say is, I'm not an attorney. I don't know if we can help or not. I'm going to find out, and if we can't help you, if we can help you, I'll schedule you to talk to an attorney, and if we can't, I will point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
Right. So we never tell anybody no. It's like, if we aren't the right fit, we aren't the right ones, or we can't help you, that's not the kind of law we practice, then we're going to point you in the right direction. That's super important. Super important.
Yeah. You're paying for all those leads. You're paying for all of that stuff.
You know what I got to say about that too is every call, web form, chat, whatever, even if it's outside our practice areas, we're logging those. We're counting those. We count those. And I know lots of attorneys who've told their reception, if it's something we don't handle, tell them we don't handle it and get them off the phone. And they don't even know. So your marketing, though, is going to attract. I want to know. Yeah,
what's working and what's not working.
Right. So maybe the ad you're running is working too well for a case type you don't handle. Maybe there's something about how that thing is worded that's got people calling that are not the right people. And so if you're not logging the good, the bad, and the ugly, then you're not going to know.
Especially if you're, outsourcing all your pay-per-click somewhere.
Yeah.
And those guys make more money on the more that you spend on pay-per-click. They're not inclined to make your budget less.
Right.
Okay, man.
There's so much. I know there's so much. Anytime you and I get on the phone, we go for hours.
Well, I just want to make sure that we get everything for them here. Okay. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you about. The panel editor, which is a big new feature for the version 4 sites. You've been playing with that.
Yeah.
So the panel editor is for the V4s, which allows you to really, I call it pancake editor, because you can pancake your website and move it all around. So
sandwich it. I love that. So, in fact, I think either this last redesign or the one before, when we were asking for, we basically asked for that. Maybe you didn't build it just for me, but I like thinking you did.
Oh, no, it's for you.
So, no, so we like that. It gives you lots of flexibility. We can put whatever we want to in there. I think, for the client who's like us that has a lot of internal technical capability, the fact that we can, through the panel editor, we can literally add programming to our website without bothering you guys if we want. It's risky for most people, but no, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and we just spent, like we said earlier in the program, you were in there about an hour or so going with the dev team about all the new stuff we have coming up. It's pretty exciting. The
most fun I had the whole 2 days was sitting with the dev team going through everything. Yeah, that was super fun. I think you're giving us more and more tools and flexibility to customize, and that's an opportunity. But you have to there has to be discipline around testing that stuff. I don't know how many of your clients are using Google Optimize or Optimizely or something like that to test the elements that they add to their site. But that's like step one is I want the page to have this, and step
that's getting your master's degree in marketing.
It's super important though. I know a lot of people don't use it.
No way.
And they're crazy. Why would you?
They got to get through the marketing. Like if they can get through, they need to graduate high school first. Okay.
Yeah. But I know a lot of these attorneys have big egos, and they're like, I want this on my site. I want that. I want it to look like that. I remember talking to one of your customers one time, and they're like, I know, I want. And I said to him, I'm like, it doesn't matter what you want. what do the clients want? I asked him if he tested anything, if he used Google Optimize or Optimizely, and he said, no, I know what I want.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. And I was like, dude, it doesn't matter what you want. It matters what the client wants and what potential client and what they'll respond to. Right. So I love that you give that flexibility, but I feel like I have to give that asterisk and say, but you got to test it. You don't just throw stuff up and say, "Yay, we're done." You gotta find out. You gotta answer the question.
So big things in 2020 for Davis Law Group. Anything that you want to?
No assumptions. No. 2020 is the year of clear vision, right? And we're not going to assume that the things we've been doing will continue to work. We're not going to assume that anything anybody tries to sell us is better than what we're doing. We're not going to assume the things we chose not to do in the past or we did in the past and didn't work will continue to not work, right? It's the constant test and measure.
I like what you were talking about earlier and how you use DSS to go back and look at specific pages performance and how you use. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I built my own tool for myself that pulls in my Google Analytics page visits data and then takes my exported DSS data and merges them so I can do a conversion analysis of any page on the website. How often do any visitors to that page either make a phone call, fill out a chat form, fill out a form, right? How often does that happen? And that I can look from month to month to see the conversion rate. So like pick a page, I don't know, school bus accidents, right? Pick the school bus accident page and look at the last 5 years of data for that. When was the conversion rate the best for that page? Oh, it was September 2015. Well, what did the page look like then? What was on that page at that time that made more people click or perform a call to action then than do now? Better find out. And the cool thing about DSS is I can go back, I can look at any page on the website, what it looked like way long time ago. Yeah. So I can pull up that page from September 2015, put it side by side with how it looks now and go, wait, what? This used to be there and now it's gone? Or there's this new thing that wasn't there then? And if I want to, I can just throw up the old page, test it for a month, look at the data again, or I can start mixing and matching. I love that. But I had to build my own tool for that, and I gave it to you guys yesterday. So
yeah, we got Matt Guyver looking into building some dashboard for something like that. Some nerdy stuff going on here.
I nerd out.
Right?
And I love your nerds.
That's the science. That's the science of this.
Yeah, that's
right?
See, that's total science.
Yeah.
That's total science. But looking at what it is, paragraph by paragraph,
right.
line by line, graphic element by graphic element, right? And going, what was it?
Right. But that's good. How do I make it better? You're at that point, 13 years, man. You know, like going back and saying, well, what worked? How can we do it better?
Well, and going back to the Optimize or Optimizely tests, so anybody goes to the website right now will see a specific picture of Chris. I have tested Chris with glasses, Chris without glasses,
Optimize
Chris with tie,
like A/B split
testing, Chris with a tie, Chris without a tie,
right.
Chris in the blue jacket, Chris in the gray
right.
jacket, Chris crossed arms, asshole Chris, or, nice guy, smiley Chris. I've tested all of that, right? So the image you see of him there is the one that works. But
which one is it?
Nice it's the slight smile but not big smile, no tie, open, and glasses.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think we covered it.
We covered a lot. I think we might have melted some brains.
Yeah, there's some other things that I'm not remembering right now, but we'll save that for
we could
another
talk
time.
about anything, anytime. Yeah.
Well, Mischelle Davis, thank you very, very much for coming out here, hanging out with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
And we'll have you out here again. Oh, I know what I was going to say. That I'm going to just say it on. I'm going to say it on air.
Okay.
I'm going to commit.
Okay.
One of the things that I'm really excited about, and we're going to do it in 2020. We're going to do it this year. Is we're going to start the FWM advisory board this year with you.
Yeah.
And the advisory board will be some of our, I was going to say top dogs, but you're no dog, so I can't call them top dogs. Top clients, some of our favorite peeps that help make this company great and make our clients great, because that's what we're after. I'm
excited because when we were talking yesterday, the advisory board as a group would get to do what I did today, right, which is go through what's coming down the pike developmentally for the product and offer up suggestions, right, and or help you guys prioritize what you want to do. And then there's no way you're not going to get all those people in a room together and not have it turn into a mastermind meeting. Right. Right. So
that's really what it is.
So it's a super nice quid pro quo, right, for everybody, right? You guys get your customers' feedback, prioritization, they get new features, everybody gets a mastermind. It's perfect.
And I think everybody will get one of these phasers.
I'm going home with that one.
And a communicator that really works. Bluetooth communicator.
I love that.
Right.
I'm going to get one for my kid just so I can play with it.
Cool. Anyway. All right. Hey, Cole, thanks so much.
Thank you.
For filling in for Thomas. Thomas is not well. We hope you feel better, Thomas Shelton. And Mischelle Davis, thank you so much for coming. Chris, thank you for lending her to us. And to everyone out there in TV land, this is Tom Foster signing off from the world of marketing. See you soon. Take care.